Well, glory be and mercy me, we've done it yet again. Here we are, daily walk around the graveyard. Today we're talking about the Flew Trucks Clan, or if you prefer, the Freedom Rally down in Ottawa. The thing that's getting hyper-focused on about this rally is the far-right elements that exist within it. I think it's extremely believable that people are angry and angsty. They want to do something. Here's this rally, something to do, something to express their anxiety and their rage. There is now a majority of Canadians, according to recent polling, that is saying they want to reopen everything. They want to subserviate themselves back into the capitalist death cult, right? They want to sell themselves into a labor market dominated by billionaires. And so it's reasonable to believe that not everybody who is going to this rally is part of the far right. Even though the leadership of the rally, the people who are central organizers, definitely are members of the far right, right? And as that classic phrase goes, if there are 9 people sitting at a table and a known Nazi comes and sits amongst them without protest, there are 10 Nazis sitting at a table. But even that, the thing that I have noticed in the analysis, in the mainstream analysis, the corporate media as well as the state-run media, is that no one is actually talking at all about just the central statement of the movement itself. Everything is hyper-focused on, oh, they're a far-right movement, and oh, look at these far-right elements, and scare the Canadian people, scare the Canadian people, scare the Canadian people. Continue voting Liberal because we'll protect you, right? That's the goal here, ultimately. And no one is actually bringing up the fact that, hey, wait a minute, saying reopen, right? We want our freedom back. Saying reopen is not any different than saying, let's continue creating a labor market dominated by a billionaire class in which the populace has to sell themselves to for base subsistence, right? No one is actually bringing up the fact that even if you are not a far-right Nazi, the don't tread on me signs, the Confederate flag, all of these kinds of things, what you are fundamentally saying and what you are fundamentally arguing for is a return to a failed system that was already breaking apart, that was already abandoning people into homelessness, that was already spiking poverty, that was already a project of extraction by the billionaire class, right? And asking for a return to this project of extraction so that people will have to sacrifice their lives to a death cult that does not care about them or the future of their own children is psychotic. It's absolutely insane to stand up and say, hey, let's continue selling ourselves to the capitalist death cult, and nobody's even talking about that, which is classic, right? That's the role of the state media, that's the role of the corporate media, is to remain silent on its own illegitimacy and its own failings. Let's say the government decided to capitulate and actually open everything up. So, what's it going to do? Well, you can rest assured that thing number one is that there's going to be an enormous spike in homelessness. There's already been a spike in homelessness, and if the actions of Mayor John Tory in the city of Toronto, as well as the province of Ontario, is any indication, the way that we will deal with this is by removing supports for the people who need them and increasing the police budget so we can beat them up, throw them out of parks and the like. That's how we roll here in Toronto, right? That's how John Tory rolls. That's how Doug Ford rolls. Certainly that's how Justin Trudeau rolls. And these truckers and the like, they don't care. Their response to this will be, well, those people should get jobs. Those people should get a better skill. Those people should do X or Y, or all this backseating that goes on because they refuse to acknowledge the systemic nature of the poverty that they themselves are inflicting and demanding be inflicted on these people. This is the dark heart, the dark truth of this reopening movement, right? Is that what we are reopening to is the abandonment of the populace, the project of extraction, the project of abandonment, and no one is actually talking about it. No one is actually demanding, hey, we could erect a society that is actually based on principles that rest outside of this idea of selling ourselves into a labor market dominated by billionaires, right? We've seen it. We've proven it with the CERB. We've seen it. We've proven it with basic income pilots across the globe. We've seen it. We've proven it that we could erect a different social system, a different social arrangement that begins with actually freeing people. That's the great irony of this freedom rally. They don't care about freedom at all. They care about the continued exploitation of the working class. They are demanding that these places reopen so that people can go get their fucking Denny's, right? It's really that simple. We are really in a period of time where a section of the working class has divided from the rest of the working class and is demanding the subservience of the working class to the capitalist death cult so that the section of the working class that wants to reopen can have a slightly better time. They can go back to the restaurant they want. They can go to a hockey game. They can go do these things while people serve them. That's what they're looking for. They call this freedom. That's what's called freedom. Whereas people like myself say, you know what true freedom would look like? You know what true freedom would look like? True freedom would be not worrying about your food or your shelter. True freedom would be having enough money to be able to actually join the wider economy in meaningful ways instead of having the vast majority of your paycheck extracted from you and taken so that you can pay off someone else's mortgage, right? That's what true freedom would look like. But these people, they don't care about freedom. They care about their own personal freedom, which is selfishness, right? It's very much like saying, like, imagine if the Confederates of the South had been talking about freedom. Well, what kind of freedom would they have been talking about? Oh, the freedom to own people, right? That's the kind of freedom that we're talking about here. And what gets very scary for me, or very unsettling, I should say, is that you have a movement of people on the far right and on the right that are being adopted by the Conservative Party, that are being co-opted and taken and brought in to the political, being taken seriously by people like Aaron O'Toole and Bernier, of course. But there's nothing like this happening on the left. Nothing like this on this scale happening on the left. And sure, you could talk about COVID hesitancy. Sure, you could talk about how the left actually respects things like, you know, the universe, reality. We don't want super spreader events like this freedom rally is certainly going to be. But the truth is that if the left does not begin to coalesce around larger ideas than let's continue selling ourselves to the capitalist death cult, then what's going to happen is we are going to continue being sold to the capitalist death cult. We are going to have to come together. We are going to have to bite the bullet at some point and actually begin taking to the streets in meaningful ways. We are going to have to begin surrounding the halls of power. We are going to have to begin actually putting forward a movement that is explicitly saying, this arrangement is unacceptable. It is unacceptable what is happening to us. It is unacceptable what's happening to the people of Canada. That we work multiple jobs and cannot pay the rent. The wages no longer pay the rent. And even when they did, it was all that we were getting. All we were getting. Working 40 hours a week, working our lives away, was a meager subsistence, a tiny apartment, and maybe a 2-4 of beer at the end of the day. It is not an acceptable way to live, especially when literally one generation back, people who worked 40 hours a week, they got a house, they got a car, they could support a spouse, they could support kids, they could support all this kind of stuff. Now, the housing market's out of control. Everything's gone ridiculous. The project of extraction is extracting even our futures and our ability to have stability in this society. And who are the people galvanizing onto the streets and actually surrounding the halls of power? The people demanding that we keep doing it. Such is the nature of Canadian politics at the moment. Hopefully we can pull things up. Hopefully we can unify. Hopefully we can get more voices actually saying, hey, we should actually get into the streets. We should actually surround the halls of power. We should actually say enough of this nonsense. But right now, leftists seem complacent, seem more interested in their business models and their channels and their online presences than they do in actually taking to the streets and getting something done for real. All right, this is the end of this one, guys. If you've made it to this point, please like, share, subscribe. YouTube doesn't spread my stuff around, right? They're suppressing leftists. We know that's true, especially political leftists. They're just not interested in helping people out. So if you don't share it, it doesn't get seen. Patreon down below, same story, right? YouTube's probably not going to monetize my stuff, right? It's I keep hearing more and more leftists are talking this way. They're saying, yep, their stuff gets demonetized. They just get taken off for simply exploring leftist themes in the first place. So if you've got $1 jangling around your pocket, right? These guys are going to throw us out into the streets soon. I would prefer to avoid that if I could. Gotta support leftist voices. And always remember, guys, you are a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. The billionaire class is doing everything it can to make sure you never realize it, because if you do, then you might be resistant to the idea that you're a commodity, which is what they're looking for. Revolt, rebel, repent. Good luck. We're gonna need it.